Not to be too cliche, but where have the years gone? My chest often tightens when I think on both the best and the worst that they've held. Those beneath me in years often think me absurdly sentimental, while those beyond me tell me I've not attained the longevity to think in such a manner. To both I respectfully say, it is what it is. As of late, I'm particularly moved by how many folks have passed into eternity. I think not only of family, but of the great many friends who never attained my years. In one sense, death is such a final thing. I'm all too familiar with the anguish that comes when we wish only to hear the voice or feel the touch of a loved one. I'm likewise all too familiar with the terrible jolt of losing those to immediate and unforeseen tragedy and pondering why a percentage of my generational contemporaries have been given to tragedy while I've been spared. It strikes me first how untimely and permanent many such instances are. Then it strikes me that there is no certain immunity from such a fate for myself or my loved ones. This blog could easily carry over into an exposition on how we ought not take our loved ones or each moment we receive for granted. And indeed, it's a aptly valid point. However, I want to take it in a different direction. On occasion, I've made the semi-sarcastic statement, sometimes I wish the Lord would let us experience all the anguish, heartache, trauma, and tragedy in the early years, and we automatically had the due appreciation for our loved ones so that we could appreciate them to the fullest while they remain. These are hard lessons to learn in the revelation of their finality. Indeed, I spent a fair amount of time dwelling on them, thinking of things I wished I'd done, expressed and shared, and wishing there were questions I'd asked. At times, it's almost too much to bear, as the melancholy swells to overwhelming. Again, I often shallowly wish we'd been steeped in the experiences that render the appreciation we now have from the beginning, and that we could experience the toughest circumstances of life early on and have the childlike joys and relationships in reverse. Aside from the obvious discrepancies that arise when this statement is rationally examined, I realize that in a way the Lord is doing just that for those that are genuine recipients of His Lordship. The aforementioned statement is one from the singular perspective of humanity, for in Christ Jesus we know better things lay ahead. 1 Corinthians 2:9 says, "But as it is written, eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor have entered into the heart of man, the things which God has prepared for those who love Him." It's a minor glimpse at the incomprehensibly glorious future reserved for us in eternity, in which the Scriptures tell us that pain and sickness and mourning and all of the other characteristics accompanying this fallen earth will be done away with and be replaced with eternity in the glory of Christ, in which perfection is no longer unobtainable, but the collective norm. The Word tells us that we are given the sanctified mind of Christ, and as such we're to focus on those things which are above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of the Almighty, where we will one day reign as heirs, and where we will be reunited in praising Jesus. This does not negate the effects of mourning that accompany the flesh in which we still temporarily walk. It is not ungodly to miss and mourn, and to ache for people in times gone by. We love deeply having received His Spirit, and as such understand what real love is and are being versed in its practice as we grow in Him. If we were not to grieve following our surrender to Christ, there would be no need for Him to bear the title of our Comforter. Who can understand such loss more than our Father in heaven, who sent His only begotten, beloved Son to die on our behalf? Likewise, Christ is our faithful high priest, versed in every suffering and temptation we will ever experience. Hebrews 4:15. Therefore, we do not negate mourning. We do not negate the tears brought forth in the bitter-sweet reflection on memories of ones who will no longer greet us in this temporal life. However, we must neither negate the enduring, assured, blessed hope that resides in the heart and future of every authentic believer. So let your tears fall in somber remembrance of those who meant so much, but let them be intermingled with tears of joy and thanksgiving for the privilege of their presence in our lives, and even more so for His glorious and unspeakable provision that sprouts in our hearts all the more with each moment that we draw near to Him.